Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, October 25th, 2024. I almost said 2022 today, but when I typed it, I almost said 225. So apparently I'm completely unaware of what year it is, but I did manage to say the right one. So that's a win to start out this live stream with. Anyway, today's a Homestead Happenings show, and we're going to be talking about all the things that have happened on the homestead in the last week or so. Are you tired?
A little bit.
Are you tired from the week?
A little bit.
Why?
It's been a long week.
It's always been a long week. Are you ever like not tired on the homestead?
Sometimes.
Okay. He always like we have these talks and he's like, "Oh, there's so much going on." I'm like, "When is there ever not something going on the homestead?" I'm just saying.
I mean, there's always going to be something. I just sometimes wish that it wasn't 15 projects at once.
I just feel like when you choose this lifestyle, you're choosing chaos.
Yeah.
And you're choosing chaos because animals don't think like engineers. So what we have right now are sheep that are separated right next to each other. Older women, younger women, ram with the older women. Only one, like a couple of electric wires are separating that ram from the younger women. Now, I know the nature of men, and I question this choice. Are you going to say anything? Okay. Anyway, welcome to my Noster viewers today. If you have questions, I have you over on my other screen. So in theory, I'll see your questions. You just, I don't know how you send a message on Noster to me other than maybe replying to the post I made. I don't know. You can throw a chat in and tell me if it shows. I'll tell you if it shows up there. I've decided on Noster to stream the Friday show and not the Monday show unless we get more interest on Noster because I get like 5 people over there. Right now we have 1 person. Okay. I'm hoping that person isn't me. There's a second person. Oh, there's people now. Welcome, Nosterites. Okay, before we jump into discussing the homestead after I picked on Tactical about his engineering brain going counter to how sheep brains work, I want to do just a quick highlight of the featured event of today's show, which is the Developing Off-Grid Water on Your Homestead that's going to be put on by Ryan Steva as a member webinar for Living Free in Tennessee. Ryan Steva runs a business called the Homestead Consultant, and he's been really into like different ways to develop off-grid water. So he's doing a webinar about that for all my members. If you want to become a member, go to livingfreeintennessee.com. If you just want to buy the webinar, that's also at livingfreeintennessee.com, like towards the top, and it's $45 if you're not a member. I also have 2 sponsors to thank today, and the first one is Above Phone. AbovePhone.com is where you can go shopping for a phone that you can use to separate yourself from the big tech giant spy people. And it seems like a pain in the neck and hard, but here's the cool thing. I have one now, and I now know how easy it is to start the process. The cool thing about the phone is you can choose which things you interface with and what information they have access to. Like if you're deciding you're going to use Facebook or something, you can like put that in its own little Facebook box and it can't grab other stuff from the phone. And setting it up is so easy. I was like freaked out about setting up this phone. And then I turned it on and entered my PIN and it just worked. They also include an hour of consulting if you buy a device from them, and you can get $50 off by using the coupon code LiveFreeTN. I've got a link in the comments if you want to use my affiliate link, then they'll know I sent you. Not in the comments, it's in the description of the show. It's also in the show notes on my website when this comes out as an audio podcast. Our second sponsor of today's show is DiscountMylarBags.com. Our friends over at Discount Mylar Bags, which is a Tennessee-based business. Well, let's just say Toby has built his retirement business by using the talent that he has, which is to source things in bulk for less money and pass those savings on to you. But he cares about quality too. And when Holler Roast first sort of started going from boutique farmers market business to, you know what, I'm actually going to start shipping this stuff all over the country. He reached out and said, like, send me one of your bags. I'll see if I can get you a better bag deal. And he did. He beat everybody's bag prices. And in order to do that, he had to order something like 20 or 50,000 bags. I don't remember. It was a lot of bags. I was like, I will never need to buy bags anywhere else. Because at that time I was sending 4 pounds a day was a big deal for me back then. I'm just pleased to mention that we have gone through almost all those bags. I sent an order out yesterday with one of the old bags and one of the new bags. He has now ordered a second shipment of those bags that Hollow Roast buys exclusively from him. And when he went to order these, he's like, do you want them a little bigger? Because when like they did maybe 1 millimeter smaller in circumference than the spec, and it was like not worth messing with. But you'll notice if you have a particularly dark roast at Hollow Roast that you get this bag that's just like at the very top it's sealed, and that's because I could just fit a pound in there because the darker roasts make the beans bigger. So I was putting coffee in bags yesterday, and I'm like, all of a sudden the level in the bag is very close to the CO2 valve that lets out like the CO2 but doesn't let oxygen back in. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, did my beans shrink? And then I realized these are the new bags and they're bigger. And now I don't have to go as tall in the bag. And it was actually super cool. So anyway, you too can buy things at discountmylarbags.com. And he has some pretty cool articles about food storage. If you go to the website on the right upper corner, he's written some thoughts about how to size your bags, how to choose your O2 absorbers, when to use them, when not to use them, that sort of thing. Take the Ride says, excited to try out Jack's blend. Cool. I think I remember sending that to you recently. Unless I'm sending that to you today. I did print out the labels last night for the coffee I'm roasting and shipping today. So anyway, and Tom and Letty, welcome to the live stream. Woohoo! Guys, if you want me to see your questions, try to get the word question in all caps. This Friday episode is a lot more interactive with the live. So if I see a comment that makes sense to build into the live stream, I will say it. With that, I'm going to say, tell us about what it's like to come to the Holler Homestead 5 years ago. A homestead I have now been on for almost 18 years. That when I moved in was solid jungle vine gnarl all the way up to the house. And to run sheep on this property in the outer ring. The outer ring being the perimeter areas of the property and over onto neighbors' properties when they'll let us. What has that been like this week?
It's actually been pretty legit. There's a lot of places that I cleared by hand because just there's the only way anything was going to get done. But right now they're going down a line in between here and one of the neighbors' properties, and it's kind of partially onto his. And it goes along what we call a county road, which is, I would hesitate to even call it a dirt road.
Technically, it's a county road. They maintain right of way there. They can do anything they want to that road.
Government definition.
Yeah, it's an access, not a road.
Yeah, but one side of it has just never been maintained by anything, and I was up there the other day clearing a spot to be able to divide a paddock and was like, oh, that is a massive wad of old fencing completely engrossed in vines. Like, I almost didn't notice it because it was just completely overtaken by this invasive vine. And it's like, I am not even dealing with that right now. And it's like, I'll see what the sheep do to it. And so I think it was last night, I moved them off of that paddock onto another one. And so I think it was last night, I actually was like, wonder what they did to that. So I walked all the way back there just to look at that. And there's like a couple of vines still sticking up through the wire, but it's like, when I move them to the next paddock and I get my access back with the four-wheeler, I'm going to come back here with a chain, weave it through all of that wire, and just finish yanking it the rest of the way out. And it'll be nice and easy, and I don't have to sit there and fight 50 pounds of
something about
vine.
Building your homestead on land that has been homesteaded before is you find things in the weedy gnarl, especially if it's been homesteaded and then ignore. Like, this was probably homesteaded based on the infrastructure that was here in the late 1800s, early 1900s, up until the dam was built. there was a huge economic crash when the dam was built. And part of that was that the freshwater pearl business had a huge crash here and people left the area. Like you'll go to houses, you still find houses in the woods that's like,
Yeah.
there's plates on the table. They had breakfast and walked out, left everything behind.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. So I assume it just wasn't, nobody was here really doing anything, or it was because there was an old cabin here that I took down before it fell on somebody's head. And that had fencing related things out there. If they had livestock, they for sure had chickens up there. And then Mr. Cruz bought the property and put this house in. And then he also was a master gardener and had some livestock. And then the people who had it after him had some goats here. So all of that stuff is in the jungle, but then the jungle comes back very quickly. And then the way that vines go around fencing, it makes it so you can't see the fencing. So the danger is when you're out there with chainsaws or other power tools, you'll hit metal and you have to be ready for that. That's actually why you should get some chaps. And then also clearing that is super hard when it's also locked in the vine that takes over all the things here when there's bare ground. And the cool thing about livestock is they'll do that work for you. So the sheep will eat, like they just eat one leaf at a time and they'll pick them all out of there because they're tasty. They really like that vine.
They'll actually eat the actual stems on the ends of that too.
Yeah. So it's like a little kid with little fingers pulling them off. And that makes our job easier. So I will say that I resisted goats and I resisted sheep on this property for a long time. And every time somebody came out who knew more than I did, they were like, you need to have sheep or goats, depending on who they were.
Yeah.
And I actually said no sheep, absolutely no sheep, and went for goats, which was maybe not the right decision. But the goats did a great job. But those animals are designed to clear for you, and that saves you a ton of time and potential injury when you're able to reveal what's underneath the vines.
Yeah, and the other really interesting part about it is, when you put animals like that on an area and they start grazing, it triggers the microbiology within the soil. And in a season, you can see the change in what comes up and what doesn't. I see it a lot in the pasture, and I'll be interested to see what happens in this area after they've been through there. But there's sections in the pasture that were completely wooded, still are, that this spring, well, to start with, they were trees with basically bare dirt underneath them because the water washes all the fallen leaves out. And so it's just horrible up there. But this spring, we had grass come up in the woods.
Yeah, they're not lying when they say rotating your ruminants through the property starts developing pasture. It just naturally does. It unlocks the seed bank that's already there and it provides the environment that those things need. But, people ask all the time, like, how many sheep per acre can I have or whatever? And the answer is, I don't know how bad your pasture is. Mine's pretty bad. So not very many is the answer. And the only way you figure that out is by having them there and watching them and seeing if they're getting enough food. And if they're not, you have to add hay or add pasture. So it's better actually to start with fewer animals and let them develop the flock with the food source, because they're developing the food source as you rotate them through that. Okay, this weekend, the Eversoles are doing a barn raising at their new property. Speaking of developing a new homestead on land that hasn't been homesteaded, although it has been hayed. So it has been worked somewhat, and they've got a nice pond. So folks for community, if you want to do that, you better get over to Telegram, t.me/LFTN group. Join the group and find out how to get involved, because Steve does not have another way for you to RSVP or get information about it. So you've got to be on Telegram. I actually think we need to get him an email form next time he does one of these, so folks can send that in. But we're putting the walls up of his garage building or workshop building, which is where they plan to live while they build their house. So this is literally about getting them shelter for the winter, because they're planning to be out of base camp and into that for the winter so that they can concentrate all their extra time and resources on getting their house built on their property.
Instead of driving to their property.
Yeah, like he's been commuting back and forth all week, delivering stuff so that we have everything on site we need to help him. I think we have 8 or 10 people already coming, camping on site. They do need to know a head count to help make sure they have enough food, but I think there is still time to get your RSVP in. Yesterday, when I was driving home from going to the Notary Public, I drove by the pasture and it looked to me like the sheep were out. And I was like, I don't think Tactical's been there. So I came home and he was getting ready to go there. And I was like, hey, have you been to the pasture yet? And then what did I say?
You thought sheep were not where they were supposed to be.
Yeah, I was like, well, heads up. I think they might. I can't tell for sure. Sheep might be out. So I'm going to like change my clothes, get some water, pee, so I can come over there and help you. And we'll just assume we need 2 people over there.
Yeah. I was, when you said that, I was hoping exactly what happened is what happened, and that the younger sheep were over behind this cluster of trees where you couldn't see them, possibly a couple of them laying right next to where the paddocks are divided at. And one interesting thing, especially on that hill, is when you look up there, I will sit there and be like, are you on the right side of the fence or the wrong side of the fence? You're right next to the fence. It's just a question of I can't tell which side of the fence you're on. It's like some kind of a weird optical illusion. I had one the other day, and it's like I know the terrain well enough to see where the sheep was standing, and the actual, little mound of dirt is on the correct side of the fence, but the way I'm looking at it, it totally looks like the wire is in between me and him. And it was just weird.
Yeah, so we drove up there. They were where they should be, and I got to hang out with little sheep and the dogs and spend 10 minutes in the pasture, which wasn't terrible. And luckily they weren't out, because that would have actually been a big, enormous pain in the neck, because we have the younger girl sheep separated from the older girl sheep, because the older girl sheep have a gentleman collar right now. And we don't want the gentleman collar with the younger sheep because they can get pregnant, but then it's because they're not fully developed. Then we have more likelihood of difficult births. And so last year we had 2 difficult births.
I think it was just the one, but we had 2 stillborns.
Yeah, I thought there was one other birth that was a little difficult or required. Oh,
well,
no.
We had
a prolapse. We had a prolapse because
yeah.
she was too young to be pregnant. So we had 2 birthing issues, and I didn't want to repeat that this year. So I really only want to breed the older girls, and that means keeping them separate. So
yeah, and that was definitely the one that had the prolapse was definitely one that was getting kept.
Yeah,
as a breeder.
Yeah. So, and then once you have a prolapse, you become food. So that was sort of that's how we keep strong genetics, guys. We don't want that passing on, but at the same time, probably could have been avoided. Not sure, but probably could have been avoided had she been older when she got pregnant. So that's a bummer. So now we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
And one of the sheep is making that very hard.
The little one?
The little one that keeps going over. Not our sheep, not little sheep, but
yeah.
Yeah.
I actually need to try to get a hold of her and throw her back in the correct paddock.
We'll see if she stays.
I think she probably will. I don't know. I think she's going back and forth between I want to be with mom and I want to be with all of my playmates.
Okay. Well, yep. Teenage sheep, guys. They're just like teenage kids, but they're like teenage 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's one thing we didn't throw in the
That's
notes.
later. That's later in the notes. Okay. It's time to get the banana ready for winter, which means surrounding it with fencing and then filling it up 4 feet with leaves so that we keep the stalks above freezing, which is why I want that fencing that's under Taj Mahal. I told nobody to move. That's what I'm using it for.
Okay.
The hard part will be sourcing enough leaves this year. So October has been so dry that we're, somebody said October isn't Octobering the way October usually Octobers. which is absolutely true. It was in the 80s this week.
Yeah.
I've been like, I
am
turned
not
on the air
complaining.
conditioning yesterday.
Yeah, I'm definitely not complaining about this.
Yeah, so we've had this, like, we had that one frost, and then we've had this glorious time of warm weather where things grow, which means that the mint I still haven't harvested for winter drying has not been harvested, and it's not dead. So I can still get my hands on some of that, which will be good because I want more chocolate mint than I already harvested for winter tea. And that's on my list after I go to the GSD weekend this weekend.
Yeah.
So we'll see if it really gets done. But that is tentatively on one of my Sunday afternoon things I have. I also will start the banana Sunday afternoon. Because what's going to happen from here is at some point we're going to get punched in the nose with a dramatic weather change. And then it'll be, it's going to frost, as if we didn't know it was coming, as if it isn't happening 3 weeks later than usual, as if we didn't have all the time in the world to be ready for it. We're still going to feel like we're not ready for it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, for me, it'll be more like I was hoping it was going to be late December before this happened, and now it's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah. We also really want a grass-fed cow in the freezer.
Okay.
And we haven't found one. I just found out today that the cow I thought we were going to be able to get, we can't get.
Okay.
So I put in for next year. Luckily, Ken Esch from our community has a quarter cow available. And he's driving by the house in an hour.
Yeah.
So I told him to throw it in my chest freezer if we're still on this live stream. And we will have another half cow we're getting that we always get. But last year we went through 2 whole cows. And I would say because one of the half cows was a small amount of half cow, we went through 2 3/4 cows. I mean, 1 3/4 cows. So we went through a lot of beef. We did serve a lot of that at the events we did here. And I don't know, like we cruised through it this year super fast.
Yeah.
So the person I split the cow with said, I'm not through my cow from last year. So she may have last year's cow to resell to us. Leftovers.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so we're like cobbling it together. I'm saying this on the podcast in case somebody in our network has a cow for sale that lives near me or knows of one. I haven't really started looking very hard because the economics of buying cows in Tennessee is that they aren't super expensive, really. Like we're spending $1,000 on a quarter cow right now.
Yeah.
Usually I spend $2,500 to $3,000 on a whole cow. So it's a little more than we usually spend, but that's totally in the realm. It's $5 a pound hanging weight. I usually get away at $3 to $4 a pound actual meat when we source the cow ourselves and buy the whole cow. But then when you start, like, depending on how it's butchered, that brings the price up. And when I give butchering instructions, I'm like, leave the round entirely whole, leave this whole, because I do extra cutting as I want depending on what pieces there are.
Yes.
So my butchering fees are usually way less than like steaks, and then packaging the ground beef in 1 pound increments or 3 pound increments. I'm like 5 pound hunks of beef. Like there's no point in having the little ones, like a few of the small packages, fine. But having a bunch of those little packages, I just take out a bunch of them at a time anyway. So we still have some of that left. I have one 5 pound package of the stuff that the butcher got some of the bones in there. And so I couldn't use that to serve to real people. So we end up eating it here, just us.
Not a real person.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, like at an event, you don't want beef that if somebody cracks down on it, they could break a tooth. I can be like, hey, don't chew overly hard tonight. It's the last package of that beef that sometimes has a bone in it.
Yeah.
You're not a real person.
I mean, I also am not a normal person in the fact that, like,
he doesn't chew his food, so that's also
bones and meat kind of come in one package when they're still alive, so they have to be separated. They don't manufacture the ground beef at Food Lion just as meat only. So There's actually good stuff in the bones too.
Well, the good news is that most of that beef didn't have bones. Like I just knew that somebody else who got it from the same butcher had bones in the ground problem. And so I just never used it for event food. And then last package I got one. I don't know if you just gotten them and not told me. And there's only one package of that left.
Or that might be some of what I have in my freezer.
No. Nope. The stuff in your freezer is from the cow we get every year. And that butcher doesn't just, I, based on the quality of the butchering from that other butchers, I feel like they were training somebody that day. That would be my guess. And that does happen sometimes, especially in a market where there are long wait times to get an appointment. Speaking of which, it's time for me to schedule rams. I'll make that call next week. Because I'm guessing they're going to go to the butcher in December, but they might go at the end of November if there's an appointment open.
Okay.
But he doesn't do, like, he'll do all rams in one day and then all cows the next day or whatever. Like, he has a whole schedule thing he does. And some people bring in like 20 sheep in a day. That's a lot of sheep. We have 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3.5, really.
Yeah, that one is still really
He's just going to be a small one. I just feel like he
Yeah.
will be small no matter what we do. And I can like try to cram him full of food and get him bigger, but I'm not sure it's worth the financial payoff of the time.
Yeah.
It's like, just get the meat we get. He was a triplet, and that's why he's small. He was the one who didn't get to the milk.
He's also way more skittish than the rest of them.
Yeah.
Last night was kind of entertaining because I took a scoop of feed over and I dumped it in 2 bowls and was like, all right, boys, like, you want it? Come get it. But yes, I'm going to sit right here. And the 3 of them, like, you move and they jump and run away. And then by the end of it, the 3 of them were just kind of like, okay, whatever. And the one was still like, he was trying to squeeze in between 2 of the other ones and sneak his head into the bowl so that he didn't have to get close to me.
Yeah, he does that. He's really good at it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another reason he got a lot less food last night.
Yeah. That's probably why he's small.
Yeah.
It's the fear. That's not what you need. I mean, you need some fear in your livestock so they don't just walk up to coyotes and say, here, just kill me now. But at the same time, too much fear or like too timid, and you end up with the small one with the black lips, because that's what he is. He's really attractive, but he's tiny, and we don't need tiny passed on. So the girls have been separated from each other. That was a goat circus. Actually, it was a sheep circus.
That wasn't that bad.
So what we did is we separated them, and we ended up with, first, we moved them and tried to separate them, and that didn't work. And then later that night, he fed, because there were 2 paddocks. He opened up between the 2 paddocks, fed on one side, but they were hanging out on the other side. And so mostly the adults ran through. Yeah. And then we separated them off, and I think there was 1 not adult in there when we did that. Or no, there's 1 on the wrong side right now. 1 adult's in the wrong place.
Yeah, and khaki is...
That's going to be hard.
I kind of expected that with her anyway.
Yeah.
But that basically went about like I would have expected it to.
Yeah, so that was cool. And then we have 1 baby that's figured out how to get through the fence. So we just decided to add the ram anyway. So then on Tuesday night, towards the end of the day, because Mondays and Tuesdays are my days where it's just like I run, and then it's like, wow, where did the day go? And I was like, okay, if we're going to do it, let's do it. And he was super grumpy. And then I don't know why you were grumpy.
I don't remember.
I think you were grumpy because you're like, this isn't going to go well, and I'm not looking forward to it. I think that's why you were grumpy.
There was some other stuff going on that day too.
Okay. So we pulled the truck over near the rams, and there were 5 rams at this point. He fed the rams, got his hands on one, and then I was supposed to walk in there and with a collar and put the collar on and help him subdue the ram. The problem with this plan is I was not prepared with a scoop to get over the fence, and I'm not as tall as you. So then I'm like, is the fence on? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, great. So the fence that delivers the biggest shock on the whole property is on. And I'm like, I got to go find it. So I found a stick and got over the fence, and we got the collar on, and then a leash. Do sheep like being led by leash?
Not usually.
Not our sheep. I bet little sheep can be taught.
Yeah. And some of them get the hang of it, but I plan on keeping this one long enough to care.
Okay. So he wasn't super thrilled, but we figured out if like somebody goes behind him and sort of he'll run away from somebody behind him. And then I have the leash to the side, and we got him most of the way there until we got to crossing the wash and going up the hill away from his friends. And then every muscle that this ram had relaxed, and he plopped on the ground like a 3-year-old having a temper tantrum in Walmart and would not move.
Basically.
And then every time he tried to lift him up, he just was like floppy. And he was heavy enough that we didn't want to carry. I'm like, we need like a sling so that there's somebody on each side that we can strap him into so they can't run out.
He's big enough that I can't completely get my arms around him the way that I like to be able to carry one of them. So it's like I can't really support his hind end, and which is where the bulk of his weight is. And because I tried to pick him up like a couple of times.
Yeah. We finally got him going again, and then we got him up to the truck, and then I helped Tactical get him from the ground to the truck and drove over to the pasture. And then we drove up as close to the pasture as we could, let him out, took the leash off once he was over the fence, and then he followed Tactical up the hill because he's like, oh, there's other sheep up here. And then he was in, and then it was fine.
Yeah, once he was actually in the paddock, it was, familiar because there's fencing there. There's fencing there.
There's mom.
Yeah, there's mom. Let's go that way.
Yeah. So now we are entering the time of breeding sheep where I ask Tactical every day if he's seen evidence that breeding has happened. Have you seen any evidence that breeding has happened?
No, but I haven't spent enough time over there either.
Yeah, so I was like, homesteading, the only time you're worried about if animals are having sex with each other or not. I had no idea my whole world would revolve around that when I got into homesteading, but here we are. So now Tactical's like, I wish I had a drone so I could just like look over at the pasture from here and see on my phone what they're doing or if they're in or what's going on or who's testing the fence or who's closing the deal, right?
It would be a convenient thing to have, but not worth spending the money for just that.
Well, there's a lot of things we can use a drone for, and it's not that much money.
I was looking at them just out of curiosity, and I would probably wind up spending $500 to $600.
Yeah.
So.
But to be able to see why the dogs are barking, and if you need to go all the way over there 1/10 of a mile away.
Yeah, that's usually at night though. So.
Yeah, that's a whole different can of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, there may be a drone in the holler. I think I need a drone for soft swims when I'm in the lake.
Okay.
We could have a combined drone.
Okay.
Speaking of soft swims, how many hours did it take to fill the swim spot after it was hooked up to power?
A lot.
A lot. They were hooking up the power at 9 a.m. on the Thursday or Wednesday. And it was 9 to 9:30, and I turned the water on to start filling it. And by bedtime, your bedtime, which is later than my bedtime, it was not full all the way.
No, it was close-ish, but I mean, I shut the water off at like 10:30 or 11.
Yeah, and then the next morning, got back up, turned the water back on, and by about 9:30. It was finally full enough that we could turn the swim spa on, and the manual for the swim spa is not terribly useful. And I think I figured out what's going on there. So I called the store and I'm like, hey, I just don't want to break anything when I turn this on. Are all the valves, like, how do I verify the valves are all closed? Well, water's not falling out, so the valves are closed. I'm like, great. And then how do I make sure it says to turn something on inside and then turn it on at the post? And they're like, no, you shouldn't have to turn anything on. You're reading the manual. The manual is not helpful to you. And I think what they do is they get the swim spas from the manufacturer. They take them into their warehouse. They fill them up and turn them on and test them to make sure they work, so they don't deliver something all the way to somebody's house and there's a problem. And in that process, they've done the things under the hood basically that have to be done before it gets here.
That would make sense.
And so then the manual was like, do all these things. And I'm like, do I need to do all these things? So we got it on yesterday, and then I turned it on and nothing happened. And we're both sitting there like, so I called the store again. She's like, no, it has to go through a priming process. If it gives you an error code, let us know. And then all of a sudden I heard a pump come on. And I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
He was less happy.
Irrelevant to me.
Irrelevant to you. But so then it was like, we have to get it up to heat, to temperature, to test the water, to get everything balanced chemically. And I turned the heater on at approximately 9:30 yesterday morning. Is it up to heat yet? Temperature net yet?
Nope.
Almost. It was 3 degrees away when we started this live stream. So once that happens, the store, part of why I chose this brand is the store I'm working with has us take water in. They run it through their sampling, like a high-tech machine that analyzes the water so they can help us dial things in the way it needs to be done, or help me dial it in, because this is my job, not our job. And they provide you with customer support, which I've been really thankful for, because when I was reading about the Endless Pool brand, there was a lot of, like, if you get a good install technician, then you're fine. But if you don't, you're screwed. And so that's actually why I chose this brand, was more about the customer service than the specific experience of swimming in that swim spa. And so now we're entering into the phase of getting it set up all the way. And they're always super nice to me on the phone. They're like, okay, I'm like, I just don't want to break this thing, because that would suck, right? Yeah, that would be sad. So anyway, the swim spa should be hopefully up and ready for swimming sometime this weekend. We will see, because I'm not home for the GSD part of this weekend, which means I can't like lovingly dial in all of the chemicals necessarily. And I don't know what that looks like until I go to the spa store this afternoon, because I have a choir event this evening and we're singing. So I'm just going to go a little early, go to the store, get the analysis, and hopefully go out of there with the right chemicals to get started Saturday morning before I leave for the GSD weekend. That's the whole plan.
Okay.
How much of that do you think will actually happen?
Don't know.
You don't have a prediction?
You'll probably make it to this thing tonight, but
I will make it to the thing tonight.
past that, I don't know.
Every time I tell him my plans, he always gets this look on his face. He's like, likely story. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm super excited about that. And then we're going to be having hourly access available to my swim spa for people in the area. And I'll see if anybody wants to spend money on that. And if not, that's fine too. But I only needed an hour a day.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a bunch of other hours where I don't need it. Are the ducks molting?
I think so.
What's that mean?
No eggs and lots of feathers in the coop.
45 days is what that means. Lots of feathers everywhere. They shed their feathers. They slow down on egg production. They haven't been terribly egg producing this year anyway, because they've been laying eggs everywhere but where we want them. And then we had the problem with the feed not having the vitamins balanced, and figured that out. And now that's taken care of, and they're molting. So luckily we still have 3 chickens laying eggs.
Yeah.
So that's like the sole source of eggs around here, which is a little sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I should have done was like filtered in more ducks, but there's a lot of ducks.
I tried to count the other day, and it was like 32 plus the 3 muscovies.
Yeah. I always round it up to 40. I guess 40, but we've probably lost some this year.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully they get through the molting fast and we can have eggs. The other thing that happens is the light in the winter reduces, and then you just get fewer eggs from your poultry, unless you augment the lighting, which I don't know if we're going to do that or not. I don't know that it's worth it.
I don't know.
It's part of their natural cycle. We do have a light in the coop and we can turn it on. So it just depends on if we want to do it. How's your fall garden?
Depends on which area you're talking about.
My fall garden's looking really good. It's a single raised bed.
Okay.
You know why it's looking good? Because despite the fact that October is not Octobering the way October usually Octobers, which means we haven't gotten any dang rain this month.
That's irritating.
It's irritating, and it's dry AF, which is not really what you want when you're trying to get a raised bed started. I have an automated watering system where I can go turn on the water, forget about it, and let it overwater for 2 to 3 hours.
You did fill the entire, well, not the entire, but most of the lower swale the other day.
Yeah. Yesterday, I
raised
turned it
bed.
on, assuming it was still hooked up properly, and he had unhooked it.
I didn't unhook it. Somebody
unhooked it. And so I was just dumping water on the ground, and he goes, "Hey, are you trying to water the bed?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "It's not hooked up." I was like, "I guess I need to check that this one junction of 2 hoses is always hooked up."
Because it's usually not.
Yeah. And then I groused about that. And then you hooked it up because I went inside because I had to finish doing what I was doing before I went back outside to deal with it. Yeah. So, but that's actually been really cool having the automated water, quote unquote, automated watering. What's not automated right now is the timer's not installed because he talked me out of installing the timer. Why?
Because as soon as you do that, we're getting a deep freeze for a week.
When we get a deep freeze for a week, all water to the outside on that part of the house gets turned off so it does not freeze inside my house. And then I have to go from a different spigot. At which point I can put a splitter in and a timer if I want to.
You still won't be able to put a timer on it.
Why not?
Because the timer would be outside and the timer would freeze.
Oh, only if it's freezing while I'm watering.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So we will see. We will see. But other than that, like there's Swiss chard coming off of there. He got some medicinal. He bought too many medicinal plants. So I put some of those plants in. The sage plant that we did the video planting is still alive. I've got a basil there that didn't die in the freeze. So I'm still getting basil. And then my jalapeno peppers are actually, it's time to harvest another round of those. So the cool thing is that freeze we had earlier in October, the frost, it's not really a freeze, didn't knock out the peppers. So there's peppers all over the yard. Yeah. Yeah. Tom's talking about Jack's bourbon cooled Sumatran here. Like, which roast did you get? Says he went blonde with the original batch, but I didn't care for that roast. This time I ordered medium. Yeah, the medium's good, and the super dark roast is also good on that. Jack's blonde bourbon cooled Sumatran, like the light roast. If you like light roast, you'll like it. But if you're not a huge fan of light roasts, nothing's going to change that in your palate, even if it's a really good bean. That's my opinion. And I'm not a huge fan of light roasts, so ask me how I know.
Neither am I.
I prefer Jack's at a dark, but it's a Sumatran bean that usually is, I think that's like typical of that varietal. That it's like most people go dark on the Sumatran because it's a very strong flavored bean. Like a medium or medium plus is pretty good too. Okay, speaking of dry October, we are breaking records. I don't believe we've had an October on record in Tennessee where we didn't have any rain for the whole month, which is kind of astounding considering like just a week before October, we had so much rain that people were caught off guard in their homes and died as floodwaters rushed through in eastern Tennessee. It's a little crazy, like how much rain fell during that storm and right before that storm. And then we've had nothing since then. So what that means for us is we're not getting our usual resurgence or rejuvenation in the fall that we get in Tennessee as far as gardens, trees, and the field hay or the grass that the pasture that the sheep are into. So that's been not the end of the world, but not awesome. The good news is we had a fairly wet summer. And so sourcing hay has not, besides my hay sourcing issue, sourcing hay hasn't been that hard. I'm going to get probably 20 more bales of hay in before it gets like for earnest into winter, but I anticipate the sheep are going to be cruising through the hay. And once we know how much they're going through a week and how many bales we have, we can start assessing if we need to this year do something I would not like to do with the sheep, and that is give them creep. And if that happens, like knowing sooner rather than later is better, because what we don't want to have happen in the winter is their condition fails so much that we don't have the sheep. The other alternative is we start processing them and have fewer sheep in the winter, which is why like the boys, before it gets real cold, are going to be processed and put in the freezer, because in the winter you have less food and that's when you process them. Which is why we really hope that putting the ram with the girls is going to be successful.
Yeah.
I'm going to worry about that all fall.
Yep.
That's what's going to happen.
She's going to worry about that till next March.
Well, once I see that they're pregnant, then I'll know.
Yeah, which will probably be like February.
It's true. One of them kind of looks pregnant now, actually.
Agreed.
I wonder if she is.
Possibly.
We may have had a stray situation develop.
Possible.
I don't love those.
Neither do
It
I.
messes up all the timing. Yeah. But then I'm wondering how that happened.
Sheep do sheep things.
Sheep do sheep things. It's true. But they're not doing sheep things in front of us now, so we don't know for sure that sheep do sheep things.
He wasn't shy a month ago.
Yeah, it's true. Maybe he wasn't shy because his buddies were near.
Maybe.
Maybe he needs like the encouragement of having his buddies in the pasture.
Not gonna happen, but
Okay. Your favorite topic is next. It's infrastructure. It's all about finishing the prepper pantry.
okay.
You're going to walk out?
No.
So the prepper pantry had a new roof put on. The inside was pretty much gutted and it needs to be put back together for winter. So where we're at now is at this point, it can go below freezing and we're not going to have a big problem there. Right?
Wait, say again.
The prepper pantry.
Mm-hmm.
If we go below freezing at this point, we're not going to have a huge problem because we've stuffed things in all the holes.
Probably not.
But it needs to be properly finished in order for me to put the things that go in the prepper pantry back in the prepper pantry. So then I asked him, like, what do we need to do?
And I don't know what we need to do yet.
Yeah. So basically, I've got somebody ready to come in and help us put this back together. And he's like, I don't know. And this is where we get into more my like project manager mind versus his linear thinking. He needs to get to a certain point before he can see the rest of the path. Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and then I need to know the list of all the things that need to happen so I can get materials ordered, figure out when it's a good time to have somebody in to help, and not like what always happens when we don't go through the process of planning is people show up to help and then we go to the hardware store.
Yeah.
I don't want that this time.
There's an aspect of, in order to know what needs to happen next, I need to finish pulling something apart. Normally, that would not be a problem. You walk in there with a hand and a crowbar, and like 20 minutes later, you're done. But then again, this place wasn't built by a normal person. This place was built by a person who expected it to never get torn down ever.
Yeah, he was an engineer too.
Yes.
Yep. So hopefully that'll happen in the next week so we can get that done, because like primary directive is finish the projects that are in process here so that things can go where they need to go and serve the purpose of the homestead. And that's probably the most important one at this point. That and my roasting shack needs to be painted and it needs some siding replaced, which is happening next week. So, and it's like at this point, what's happened is we've been given this gift of a fall where it's not as cold as usual. It's not as rainy as usual, which means things can be stained, painted, repaired, caulked, and it will dry. And that's helpful because Self-Reliance Festival went into October, and that kind of maintenance was not what I was focused on at all in September. Right?
You're still kind of not focused on that.
That's not true. I'm getting things done.
Yeah. but you have other events coming up.
Yeah. I'm going to Jack's. There's the party at SOE.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like all encompassing like Self-Reliance Festival is. So A. Ray Pierce says, what about the marking harness that you put on the ram? Do you mean the apron that keeps him from completing the deal?
No, they have a harness that will, when he mounts a girl, it will mark her back.
Those. Yeah. You want to put one on him?
No, not worth it.
He has to catch the ram to put the marking harness on.
Like, for us, the only thing that would do is give her the satisfaction of knowing that he was on top of her, but like, it doesn't even necessarily mean that anything happens. So it's like either the deal is done or it's not.
We did this with the pigs, remember?
No.
When Lady Pig and Brutus were supposed to make other pigs, and they hung out in the pasture for months and nothing happened. And then she was on him. I was like, no, you guys are doing it wrong. Remember that?
Yes.
And then Christmas morning, Tactical goes, it's a Christmas miracle. Sends me a picture of the pigs doing it the right way.
I got a picture.
And we got pigs from that.
I got a picture that, of course, I had to send to my friends and say that it's not only a white Christmas, but it's a merry one too.
Yeah. So that happened. Yeah, that's basically where I'm at with the sheep as well. I just want to know. In other news, speaking of animals and getting more animals from fewer animals, the rabbits have been, the 2 rabbits that were not bred are bred. And the cool thing about rabbits is you instantly know. So we know. And hopefully that means in about 4 weeks, we'll have more baby bunnies. But then it opened the conversation last night where Tactical said, are you going to actually build a rabbit tractor? You said you had an idea for one. And I said, yes, I do. And he's like, because it's time. I'm barely keeping up with the mama rabbit and her kits. And it's a little early to wean the kits yet.
Okay.
But we're getting there. And so apparently this weekend I have to put the plans for the rabbit tractor on steroids and get that done. So we'll see how far I actually get. Having said that, that is my other Sunday project. It's banana and rabbit tractor. Those are my 2 things. My 3 things. And my 3rd thing should be to harvest the chocolate mint.
Okay.
You don't have anything else to say? You know that bundle of 1-buys that were under Taj Mahal?
Yes.
Are they still there?
2 of them might be.
Are the rest somewhere else where I can use them, or do I need to buy another bundle of them?
No, the rest of them got used on your concrete pad.
Okay, I thought I saw like a bundle there. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see if I have enough lumber before I go to Cookville, so I know if I need more lumber.
2 of those got cut up for stakes for the concrete.
That's fine. That's fine. That's what I was planning to use for framing. So.
Okay.
Yep. He's looking amused.
Yeah.
Why are you looking amused?
2x2s usually make horrible framing.
I know, but it's not a very big cage.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not going to be a super heavy cage. It's not what it's designed to be.
Okay.
Okay. He's like, she's going to learn her lesson the hard way. That's the look on his face.
I'm going to let you do what you want to do with that.
Funny videos to come, including, the last chicken tractor I made did burn in place.
Yeah.
Yep. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not sure it's the best idea to have me venture into rabbit tractor making, but somebody's got to work on it, and I don't think you have time.
Well, I have not allotted time for it, which is why I asked the question last night was, do I need to allot time for this?
Yeah. Jen says, if you have extra chocolate mint, I'd love to get some for tea. Noted. Okay, so I guess the last thing I want to talk about is living in a community of people who are awesome, the Holler neighbors. And Tracy's been over helping Mom purge things here that can just be gone, which has been awesome, except for that I still can't find the swim spa screws. But I'm pretty sure that's my fault. I think I walked off with them and put them down somewhere. You're going to find this bag. in 6 months. They're going to be like, here they are. But she ended up over here at the end of the day. Nighthawk popped in, and I had planned a Japanese curry beef in the crock pot because I was originally supposed to go on a long drive to go see somebody yesterday, and that got canceled. So then the meal cooked itself all day. And they walked in, and I was like, okay, well, who's staying for dinner? And everybody stayed for dinner. Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the impromptu holler neighbor dinner.
Basically.
Steve wasn't here, but we sent him home a package.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun. And it's kind of fun to do that. And I don't know. I just like having people near the homestead who are also homesteaders that you can hang out with and they get it. So.
Yeah. I'm reading comments.
Why are you reading comments? You're supposed to be producing entertaining content for people.
Part of
Yeah. A right here says 2x3 for the base. I tried 2x2 and it broke in a day. Best middle ground option for strength and lightweight. Yeah. So what I'm doing is based on something Ryan Steva told me, which he was like, I was thinking about rabbit tractors. And the problem is you have to have mesh on the bottom because they'll dig. And he's like, what if you put welded wire out and let the grass grow up through it and then built a bottomless cage for the tractor? Which is what I'm going to do. And yeah, I'll probably be irritated I use 2x2s, but we will see how it turns out. And then hardware cloth around the top. And the part I haven't figured out is like getting entrance to the tractor, but I'll figure that out at some point.
Okay.
Yep. So that's the plan. We'll see how it goes. And if I decide I need 2x3s, because that's what everybody's telling me, you're probably right. But I'm going to do it the wrong way first and learn the hard way, because that's the way I like to learn things.
Okay.
Anyway, we're to the end of our homestead update list. You got anything else you want to talk about on the homestead, or are you done?
No, I'm good.
All right, we're going to flow into the rest of the weekend. We got a GSD weekend over at the Eversoles. Mama Sauce is flying home. I got to drop her at the airport. I've got my choir's fundraiser tonight, which is, it's not a fundraiser, it's a special event. Okay. But that's happening tonight as well. So I'll see you guys on Monday with a new show. If you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at, this doesn't say Hollow Roast, hollowroast.com. 2, you can become a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.